So I think that the first and foremost thing is you are not alone, right? You need to remember this. You are here with a team of people who are like-minded, right? So who basically understand this solution sometimes better than you, right? So that is something which you have to be open to and you have to keep it in your mind, right? Right now, I am backed up by the mothership itself, but even if you are on the other side where you are in integrator or implementing the solution, you have a firm with you, right, which can help you in whichever phase of the project you are. But I think there is a flip side of that as well. When you are a customer, right, you are a customer, you are implementing that software for you, right, sometimes you tend to take decisions in silos, and which is something you need to avoid.
Thanks so much for joining another edition of the Never Ending Climb for a Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement for Companies Running SAP. Today we have Naveen Chawla. He's a bit of a legend. He has exquisite taste in watches, and he's here to join to tell us a little bit how he went from mechanical engineering with a little bit of programming and starting as a major oil and gas company as a new engineer out of school, hearing about this new project, and then this little project turned into a career. Naveen, thanks so much for joining
Yeah,
us.
no, Sean, thank you so much for having me. So yeah, I'm Naveen Chawla, as you said, mechanical engineer. Completed my degree in 2007 back in India. Had lots of dreams in my mind that I would accomplish something in mechanical trade or probably automobile, but I ended up in one of the biggest oil and gas companies in India at that time, and started as a field officer and panel engineer. So at that time, that firm was running on SAP. I had no idea what SAP stands for. And my first day on the job, they asked me, well, you don't have to go to plant. You need to come to our IT office, which was in Mumbai, the dream city of India. And they asked me to do this project, which was upgrading SAP from 4.6 BC to ECC 6.0. Believe me, that day I was never as confused in my life as I ever was because none of these things made any sense to me. First of all, what is SAP? And I used to call it SAP. Believe me, my seniors used to laugh at me like, no, it's not SAP, it's SAP. It took me 2 weeks to first, course correct myself and calling it SAP. And then the other experience which I had was first time logging into SAP, right? Always playing with drafters and folders and machine drawings and designs. It was very interesting when I first logged into SAP. But yeah, that's how it started from my journey. Had a very interesting journey so far. Being a core user, I would say, in that oil and gas company. Did my first implementation when I left the firm, joined Accenture, from Accenture to Infosys, coming and going from Canada to India multiple times, joining Deloitte, and now in SAP after 15 years to Mothership. So yeah, it was an interesting journey.
That is really, really cool.
Thank you.
Congratulations. As you've gone through your career, you've done your fair share of answering questions with "it depends." But my invitation, I guess, would be to think about the advice that you now get to give, coming from well over a decade, 16 years of experience of going and executing to go make it happen, and then taking that to be able to go and help give even better advice coming from deeper experience and setting people up for success. And there's something really cool when you get to do that. You were describing something about how you enable customers to enable. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Because in a way, it's like engineering, but it's a bit meta,
Yes.
right? Because you're accomplishing what you set out to do, but you're doing it through other means and other ways.
No, no, great question, Sean. Right. So yeah, sometimes I tell what I'm doing right now. Basically, I'm helping people like me who are in the role where I used to be, right? So I think it all started, if I look back 16 years or 15 years when I was on the other side of this software altogether, when I was a customer, right? I was a customer of SAP, and being a core user, it was my responsibility to basically, not only get to listen to those business requirements, but also ask questions like why we are doing, how we are doing, and can system really do that? So getting all that information, going into my first project when I was on the other side of the table, not yet at the product level, but at the system integrator level, I was hearing the same questions which I used to ask. So at that time, that really helped me a lot, right? Because few of the questions I already knew that people will ask because I have lived those questions and I have answered those questions already, right? So that was my first phase when I was very new, implemented, I would say, SAP consultants to implement the solution. Going to the journey,
I love it.
yeah, interacted with multiple clients after that, not just oil and gas, but utilities, process industries, I would say public sector as well. So the journey, which I would say for 12, 13 years, was just listening to those people, right? And having the product in hand, which I need to implement, but by listening to those questions, doing my own discovery at that time. But still, my hands were a little tired because I already had my product in hand. Like, this is the set of solutions which they already procured, right? They already bought certain licenses from SAP, and now I need to implement using these many licenses. Because believe it or not, at that time when those decisions were taken that they have already bought the solution, their hands were also really tied in terms of budget, timeline, that they really didn't want to hear that, okay, buy this as well from SAP, which can solve the solution, right? Which basically ended up making SAP a little cumbersome because of lots of Z custom solutions we introduced, right? But been there, done that, coming to this side of the table where I am right now, where I am advising the customers to what to buy from SAP to solve their business problem, basically gives me a new perspective to help them in a better way, because now I have the power to tell them this, not this, but these are the right solution sets for your business, right? Right now, you might be looking in a silo, but if you go step above, look at the bigger picture, right? You might just not need this small portion. You might need these four things. You might not use it today in your first phase of project, but you will definitely use it in the second, third, or fourth phase of the project. But the right thing is to have that in your arsenal so that you can use those weapons tomorrow, right? What is happening by this, that the people who are coming to implement the solution now, they are not constrained by just one set of solution or technology, right? They have all the apps, all the partner enabled solutions with them, which was rightly advised to customer, and now they can basically take advantage of implementing the right solution without doing any customization for them, right? So yeah.
I love it. It sounds like it comes from this place of empathy and a little bit of a, lessons learned and maybe a few old scars
Yes.
of times where you wish you had maybe had a seat at the table when the which sets of software were being set up and bought.
Absolutely.
Um, that that opportunity, I know I can relate to this from several experiences that I had, even going back 15 years, where you know what you wanted, and sometimes the decision to actually go and buy that one more thing was 6 months ago, and that's not in the budget anymore. So you've got to make do. And when you can help somebody avoid that, it's such a beautiful thing. So I love you get to be on the front end of helping make that happen. And it's not like you're a greenhorn who's never been through a project before. You're able to bring this experience with you. I think that's beautiful. When you're now getting into a project, can you share a few thoughts about something you wish more people could learn from your experience? That, things that you've got some scars and you wish more people could take this into their next project, into their next improvement. Before the call, we were talking a little bit about how there's a few of these things that you can seek to understand from both the systems integrator perspective, but also the perspective of other advisors that are helping them. What stories come to mind for you there in terms of how somebody can seek to understand and learn and listen at a few different points in the project?
Yeah, so I think that the first and foremost thing is you are not alone, right? You need to remember this. You are here with a team of people who are like-minded, right? So who basically understand this solution sometimes better than you, right? So that is something which you have to be open to and you have to keep it in your mind, right? Right now, I am backed up by the mothership itself. But even if you are on the other side where you are integrator or implementing the solution, you have a firm with you, right? Which can help you wherever, in whichever phase of your project, in whichever phase of the project you are. But I think there is a flip side of that as well. When you are a customer, right? You are a customer, you are implementing that software for you, right? Sometimes you tend to take decisions in silos, and which is something you need to avoid. So it might be good for your business process. I'm not even saying business area. It might be good for your business process, but you have to have that open mind to basically listen to your colleagues and counterparts as well within the business, that will this process or the solution which you're trying to put in be helpful for them, or it will create more roadblocks or hurdle, right? So I think as a customer, you also need to listen to your colleagues, your other business process areas, and come with a solution which is good for everyone. Similarly, on the other side, as in you are implementing the solution, just don't implement something which is right for that 1 month so that you can get rid of your deadline, right? Implement something which is not only good for you. And I would say I used to implement both asset management and projects, right? So sometimes these two areas are good enough to know, but believe me, finance, procurement, sales and distribution, quality management, every area can get impacted by one silly mistake which you're doing in your configuration, right? So you have to be
Yeah,
very, very not accurate, but you have to be open minded to those things as well, which can put the entire thing in trouble from both the sides.
I like it. I like it. So when you're thinking about the never ending climb, to me, of course, is near and dear. And before the call, we were talking about one of the things that's maybe a little bit of a new climb for you, where the pace of change for new features, new products, and so on that are all coming out. Can you share a little bit about how that becomes one of your next major hills to keep climbing?
Exactly. No, definitely. So never ending climb for you and never ending learning for me, right? I'll put it in this way. Because today the entire SAP solution is on cloud, right? As for HANA, we are really innovating on a good speed, right? And when I say good speed, sometimes we have some feature functions available in quarter. Sometimes we have feature functions available in 6 months, and yearly another upgrade, right? So every quarter you are getting something new, right? Which means you need to learn something new, right? And imagine you are behind. I am advising a customer in January about one of the small problem, where they want to see something in scheduling and it's not there. And I'm saying you can do these things so to solve this problem. I am a year ahead. I listen to the same problem. Imagine my advice is same, but the product has already improved in last 1 year, where we are addressing that particular pain point for that they don't have to go through the workaround, right? So staying up to date in my role right now is very important. I would say it's not just my role. We enable our partners as well, right? So it's very important for them to also understand that their people who are implementing the solution should also be, caught up with all these updates and new releases and learn the solution.
Yeah, that continuous learning.
Yeah.
And the pace of change is fast enough now that what you thought you knew even a year ago is already out of date. Makes it tricky when you're doing one of those big 2-year programs that sometimes people try to bite off, doesn't it? You get halfway through and you're already out of date.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. Reminds me of my last project which I implemented, right? It took 2 years, as you rightly said. And the problem which we solved in those 2 years, giving some solutions, we had some standard solutions already. So yeah, so this I think these things happens all the time when you go in a bigger project, or which a lengthy project, I would say.
yeah, take little bite-sized chunks.
Yes.
It's so important. I think one of the other things that I remember you were sharing is how sometimes people imagine different parts of the business or different flavors of the business. Sometimes people can imagine or hallucinate that they're vastly different. Things like, the maintenance and the projects, and sometimes they're maybe not as different as they might initially seem, especially where At the end of the day, it's all people that are helping make them happen. So, Naveen, can you tell us a little bit about how you had a couple of tips around decisions and taking stock of what's going on around supply chain? Maybe we can land the plane there of your advice for maintenance and project teams and how they can work and play in new and more effective ways.
Definitely. Because I have worked in both the areas, I have seen business side of both the business processes as well, right? And often what I have seen, or first I would say, what I think is there's never a successful operation on maintenance until unless there is a successful project, right? Because if you are not able to finish your asset in time, given its plant itself or some machinery in the plant, right? If that asset is not well established, I would say job well done by projects. Day one, when that asset hits the ground or the rubber hits the road, you will see maintenance issues coming in, right? So it is very, very essential is that project should be successful and then hand over to operations in a timely manner, right? And when we try to tie these two things together, for example, when the are up and running and you are still doing new projects there, often we take decisions around procurement, for example, which are in siloed, right? Okay, there's a huge pump. I need probably valves and bearings for the pump. This is very urgent for me, right? I don't have time to basically talk to anyone because this is urgent task for me. I just go inside, raise a purchase or order purchase equations and send it to the vendor, right? Without sometimes thinking twice. However, the nature of the work is urgent, but there might be stock already, right? There might be stock in transit, right? Or there might be a stock which was delivered for something and not being used, and I can use that, right? And sometimes it happens in both the realm of the business process projects as well as maintenance, right? Because maintenance and project can run at the same location. It doesn't matter that it is not always the fact that standalone project is being run where you are implementing a new plant, right? So decisions like that, when you are especially sitting on a table where you have the power of buying, right? You should have a bigger picture view as well, where you can look and see the information what you have, what type of stocks you have in hand, and then make that buying decisions, not just blindly go and buy something, right? I know the customers basically who I work with mostly, they have a robust team set up for supply chain in both the areas. But sometimes, as you rightly said, it's human, right? At the end, and humans can make mistake. But when it comes to the transparency, when it comes to that single source of truth, so SAP as a software plays a great role, right? Because it gives that power, that singular view where you can see all the information around procurement.
Yeah, I think that ability to reinforce the idea of people buy an ERP so that they have an ERP and they put their information in one spot and ways to go and reinforce that to get more out of that investment, to protect that investment. So important. Naveen, thank you so much for joining us
No
today.
problem.
We've got another episode coming up every week. I want to thank everybody for joining for another episode of The Never Ending Climb for Stronger Supply Chain and Procurement for companies running SAP. If anyone's looking for a little more on how they can level up, take a quick peek at our software solutions for SAP. Thanks so much, guys. Have an amazing time.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks a lot for having me today.